Hello and welcome to License to Chill, the Margaritaville podcast. I am Ryan Middledorf.
And I'm Patrick McDonald. This podcast is your weekly 30-minute escape from whatever you're trying to get away from. We're here.
We got your back.
Ryan and I are lifelong buddies, and we're also tropical lifestyle enthusiasts.
And we're also big fans of not working.
Yeah, it's usually what tropical lifestyle enthusiast means.
Right.
Yeah,
I just wanted to really put a pin in it.
Yeah, perfect. So we got together, had some conversations with artists, creatives, musicians that you know and love, and talked to them about some of their best work and some of their best non-work, some of their best vacations they've ever been on. And it's a really, really fun job we have, Ryan.
Absolutely. And our guest today is a legendary musician, best known for his work with Stephen Stills and David Crosby in Crosby, Stills, and Nash, for which they won the Best New Artist Grammy in 1970. And his new album, which is called Now, comes out on May 19th.
Originally from Blackpool, England, he's known for his poetic, thoughtful lyrics and an unbelievable ear for harmony. It was an honor and one of the greatest privileges of our lives to speak to him, so please enjoy this. Without further ado, Graham Nash.
So, I believe we're recording.
Yes, we are recording. So we're just...
Wait. The first thing I want to do, I want to congratulate Jimmy on Margaritaville being inducted into the Library of Congress. That is fantastic.
Oh, yeah. Isn't that incredible? It's amazing. Yeah. You just got a song inducted in the Library of Congress too, right?
I believe it was Deja Vu, the entire album.
Wow.
That's amazing. Congratulations to you as well.
You're welcome. Jimmy turned me on to my favorite book.
What's that?
It's a book called Shantaram. And I was having dinner on New Year's Eve with Jimmy on the island that we lived on Kauai, and he said, "Well, we've had a nice New Year's dinner, but I have to leave now. I can't stop reading this book." And so I asked him what book it was, and he said it was Shantaram, and it's been a favorite book for a long time.
That sounds like Jimmy too.
It does.
I gotta go. I gotta go read this book.
It's so Jimmy. Right?
How long have you known Jimmy? How long have you guys been buddies?
For a long time, he used to do Southern Cross in his set.
Oh, yeah, he still does. Yeah.
I've sung it with him a couple of times, and particularly in Paris.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I've seen videos of that. I mean, what is that like to create a song like Southern Cross and then, now still seeing it, like people belt it out at shows. It is a staple at a Jimmy concert. What is that like seeing that?
It's fantastic, and it must be even more fantastic for the person that wrote that, Stephen Stills.
Yes.
Do you have any stories of you? So you lived on Kauai with Jimmy, kind of in the same time period.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you guys have stories? Do you have vacation stories with him, or adventures you guys have gotten in together that you're willing to disclose?
Just seeing him on the beach, on Hanalei Bay, and every year, my wife and my family would dress up at Christmas, of course, and we had piles of candy canes that we would walk on the beach and give every kid, and one, we gave Jimmy one once.
That's amazing. That's so fun.
And we also spoke with Timothy B. Schmidt a while ago, and he mentioned that you all and Timothy used to hang out in Kauai. So it seems like that was a hub for you for quite some time. What is it about Kauai that you enjoy so much?
Have you ever been?
I've never been. No,
I've been. I went a year there was record rainfall where the dams broke, so it wasn't the greatest week of my life. But it's unbelievable. Hanalei Bay is one of the most beautiful places I've ever been.
It is, and when I saw a sign on a bus once in San Francisco, and it said, "Shower with a friend. We're running out of water," and I took that as an indication of what the future might be. So I decided that if I was ever going to buy a place and start a family, I wanted to make sure that there would be rain and water there forever. And you were there during a week when, our average rainfall is like 450 inches a year.
Wow.
So that's where I went. And I lived there for, 37 years.
Wow. That's amazing.
I had a house in Los Angeles and my house on Kauai. And It's a very, very beautiful island, and there are many people that go there. I mean, I just was talking with Rick Rubin, and he first saw me handing candy canes out.
I love all the wild chickens there too. That's one of my favorite things about that.
You can't get rid of them, and you can't get rid of the pigs either.
They're part of the land. They own it just as much as we do, probably even more so.
But it was really interesting watching the bamboo forest grow so quickly on the other side of the mountain from my house. I could watch the forest changing completely when bamboo took over.
Wow, that's fascinating. Yeah, it's funny. So you lived there for 37 years. When did you start living in Kauai?
77.
77. Okay. So you were with Crosby, Stills and Nash and your own music and all your bands that you worked on, like you were working so hard. Did you have to find vacation? Did you have to find rest? Because it feels like, when we look back on your career, it's like it just felt like you were constantly working, constantly making stuff. Did you have to do a hard reset where it's like, I'm going to relax now? I'm going to find a place that'll chill me out?
Usually when I fall down is when I say, hey, you need a rest.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And so you fell down into Hawaii a little bit.
Yeah, I did indeed. Yeah. And it's truly a beautiful island.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
It has its sad side too. I mean, the thing is that everything is brought to the island. Toilet paper towels, food, and if they stopped coming to Kauai with goods and services, we would be just awful,
Right.
And there's a lot of people on Kauai that maintain that the islands were stolen from them, by the Dole company and the leaders there. They made Hawaii American, and there are a lot of people on the island that don't like that and are fighting to get their islands back.
Totally.
Yeah.
An impossible task.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I understand their need too.
Totally.
Sure, absolutely. Graham, living in Hawaii, as you said, during this time, when you have to, go into the studio or go back out on tour, being in this idyllic place, is it tough for you to get back into that mindset of diving back into work, touring, songwriting, or is it an easy transition?
No, I just go. I know what I have to do, and I just go and do it. I've never planned my life. I've only followed my life. I mean, when we first did Crosby, Stills and Nash in Joni's living room, right? I went from London to Los Angeles to be with Joni. I went into the parking lot of her house on Laurel Canyon, and there were other people in there, other voices, and that pissed me off. I wanted to be with Joan, but it was David and Stephen. Mm-hmm. And so we had dinner and we smoked a huge joint, and so we were very high. And then David said to Stephen, hey, play Willie, that song that we were just doing. See, Stephen and David had been thrown out of the bird. David had been thrown out of the Birds, and the Buffalo Springfield had broken up. And Stephen and David were trying to get like an Everly Brothers kind of thing together as a duo, and so they had this song called You Don't Have to Cry, which is on the first Crosby, Stills and Nash record. And they got through the first singing of the song, and I said, holy shit, Stephen, that's an incredible song, beautiful, sing it again. They looked at each other, they shrugged, and they sang it again. When they got to the end, I said, okay, obviously, you don't know me too well, but I must tell you, I'm not crazy. Do me a favor, play it for the third time. And in the third time that they played it, I learned all the words. I learned where Stephen and David were starting phrases and ending phrases. And when I put my voice together with theirs, 45 seconds, we had to stop and laugh. We had never heard anything like this. Now, obviously, the Birds and the Springfield and the Buffalo Springfield were good, and the Hollies were good harmony bands, right? Mm-hmm. This was something that we had never heard before. We started that blend, and whatever sound Crosby, Stills and Nash made was born in 45 seconds.
Yeah.
That's amazing. It's one of those aha moments, right, where everything just clicks and makes sense.
Well, I knew what I had to do. I had to go back and leave the Hollies.
Yeah. Right.
My friends saying, "Are you nuts? You're leaving this band that has all these top 10 hits and all these number ones, and you're leaving that?" They didn't know what I had heard. I had heard me and David sing together, and Stephen, and it was life-changing.
How difficult was that decision for you, and what was that time in your life like?
It was both. It was both joyful and not. I'd heard me and David and Stephen sing, and I loved that sound that we had created. But I felt a little guilty leaving Alan Clark behind. I've been singing with Alan since I was 6 years old, and now I'm 81. So it tells you how long he's been my best friend, you know. I think we did. I think we did pretty good.
Did it feel like you were kind of in a group of people that you saw something that no one else was seeing, and then you found a group of people who were seeing what you wanted to see, and you were like, I have to go? And it just kind of makes me feel like sometimes I've been in moments in my life where I'm like, I know I'm not crazy. Everyone around me is going for this thing, and I see something else, and then sometimes you just have to find that other thing that clicks. And
yes, you do.
It's validating.
It takes courage.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, it took a lot of courage for me to leave the Hollies. I mean,
yeah.
Holy shit, they were a very popular band, you know, and my friends are saying, are you really crazy? But they hadn't heard what I'd heard.
Yeah.
And when I heard what I heard, it changed my life.
That's amazing. I have two little anecdotes. I actually worked for the people that own Joni's house now, and so I've been in that house in Laurel Canyon, and I got to light the fire, and it's just such a beautiful, incredible vibe. I just loved being in that house, so I can imagine sitting in that house and it just being such an incredible creative hub. I mean, it just probably was full of energy.
It was. I think that Joni still owns that house.
She does. Yeah.
Yeah. It was very woodsy.
Yeah.
It was very colorful with colored glass in the windows, you know, and little stained glass windows that were beautiful. And writing Our House was incredible. It was an incredible moment for me. I mean, I'd taken Joni to breakfast at a deli on Ventura Boulevard, and it was a shitty day. It was miserable and cold and rainy and foggy, and we went to Joni's car where she'd parked her car, and we passed an antique store, and we were looking in the window, and Joni saw this vase that she wanted to buy. It was about 10 inches high. It had some hand-painted flowers around the edge, and it was reasonably priced, so she bought it. So we get in the car with the vase, and we're driving back to Joan's house in Laurel Canyon, and we go through the front door, and I say, "Hey, Joan, why don't I light a fire and you put some flowers in that vase that you bought today?" And I thought, wow, what an ordinary moment that is, but that's an ordinary moment that should be amplified. So Joni was in the garden in the weeds trying to find some flowers in the end of winter to put in the vase, and so she wasn't at her piano writing. So I was, and Our House was written in about an hour and a half.
That's amazing. One of my favorite songs of all time is the demo of you and Joni together, where you are playing it and you go, "Oh shit!"
Yeah. We were at a sound check at a show in Philadelphia at the Music Hall, I believe, and Joni was with me, and so I'm sitting at the piano at sound check, making sure that the piano's loud enough in my speakers, etc. And Joni sat next to me on the piano, and I start playing Our House. So she starts playing Our House at the very top end, and we start singing together, and we totally screw up. That's why we started laughing. But that is an interesting version of Our House, really.
Yeah, I think it's I think it's so human and beautiful, and you can just tell the love is there and the energy is there, and you're just enjoying the music as you're playing it.
Right. Normally, you wouldn't put that on an album.
No.
Right.
But I thought when we were doing, the re-release of Deja Vu, etc., I wanted to put that on there, because it was an interesting moment, and I thought that people would like to see that.
Yeah, I certainly did. Yeah,
that's amazing.
Incredible.
As you know, two people that live currently in Los Angeles, we are just enamored with Laurel Canyon and what things were like, during that time. Do you have any anecdotes, any memories that really stick with you about that specific area during that time in your life?
Absolutely. I remember most because I'm English from the north of England, and if you blink, you miss summer, So the sunshine in Los Angeles was fantastic. The music was fantastic. The amount of people and the musicians that were living in Laurel Canyon was fantastic. The girls were fantastic. The drugs were fantastic. It was paradise.
And I mean, is that something that you've been able to find again, or is that really just sort of, kind of a composite of just that moment in time?
Yeah, I believe it was a moment in time that will be studied a great deal. I think that journalists in the future will really try and figure out what really happened in the late 60s, early 70s, and why was all this music made? Why were all these writers all at the same time? I mean, there was Jackson Browne, there was David Blue, there was me and Joni, there was Elliot Roberts, our manager. I mean, there were a lot of people there, a lot of the Eagles, just started out there. It was an incredible time. And what you would do is you'd write a song, and me and David and Stephen would go and sing for people. We would put you in the middle of us and sing Sweet Judy Blue Eyes from start to finish and blow your mind. It was incredible because we were very decent. We were pretty good, Even from the very beginning, we were pretty good. So we would want to share what we just learned, and people would listen to the Sweet Judy Blue Eyes and just be amazed because it was brand new kind of music.
Would you ever sit around? I mean, I've been in creative groups where I think I'm pretty good, and then I look around and I go, "Uh-oh, I might be the worst person here." I think that's why Laurel Canyon was so good, because you guys were all so talented, so you pushed each other, and you were probably in this pressurized situation where you're not as good as the person you're working with or the other people in the room, or Mama Cass just gets up and blows your mind, and then you're like, I have to go. I'm sure there was moments like that where you're like, I got to get my shit together.
Yeah, Cass was very intuitive. She was a great woman, and she was the person that introduced me to Crosby. And then, of course, Crosby introduced me to Stills, But I think that Cass intuitively knew what my voice would sound like with David and Stephen. She knew that they were getting a duo thing together, And I think she knew what CSN would sound like before we ever sang together. And that's why on every album that we've made since she passed away, we have dedicated it to Cass, because without Cass, there was nothing.
Hey everybody, we just want to take a quick break to talk to you a little bit about the Margaritaville Perks program. This thing is amazing, and it's not like your typical hotel loyalty program with tiers and restrictions and all that confusion. It's a really fun, simple, and easy way to get rewarded for booking direct and staying at your favorite Margaritaville.
That's right. There are so many personalized options for you to have an enjoyable experience at a Margaritaville using these Margaritaville perks. You can select these options during your booking process or at the front desk, but some of them include complimentary cocktails, a fruit and cheese plate, a movie pack, early check-in, late checkout, room upgrades, resort credits, retail discounts, all sorts of things. This really takes your stay at a Margaritaville to the next level. So go to margaritavillepperks.com and sign up today.
Back to the episode.
Do you feel like, when you guys were working together and when you're making music now, is it kind of a blissful creation or is it a stressful creation? Does your music come out of like, this has to come out and, I won't rest until this feels good, or does it come out of a joy in creating?
Both. I have, because I'm a writer, I have to feel something deeply before I start to write about it, because words are incredibly important. Mm-hmm. For instance, I wrote Just a Song Before I Go in less than an hour. It took me 4 years to finish Cathedral. Mm-hmm. So it took me a long time to make sure that every word was correct, because when you're talking about people's religion, you need to be telling the truth. And it took me a while to get that together.
Yeah, well, speaking of songwriting, your new album comes out on May 19th. It's called Now. It's your first new studio album in 7 years. What is it about this time that made you feel like it's time to release new music?
I had a few songs. I knew that if I had 4 or 5 songs that I was on my way to making an album. I then fell in love with this woman in New York City who became my wife, Amy Grantham, who is a great artist, by the way. Check out her art on amygrantham.com. And I wanted to let people know that even at 80 years old, you can still rock. You can still, I mean, who was it? Was it Mick Jagger that said you can't trust anyone over 30? Here I am at 81 years old talking to you about music. You know, it's been a wonderful life, and I'm an incredibly lucky man.
That's amazing. I mean, your single right now that's out right now is so great. It's cool. We were just talking about how it's both retrospective and present, right? You're like in the present, but it feels like you're talking about the past. Like it's kind of all at once. And I think it's
a love song for my wife, Amy. Yes.
Oh, it's beautiful.
I think there are 5 love songs on there for Amy. And one of them, Love of Mine. That's a song I wrote, a love song for Amy about an argument that we'd had. So even though it might seem sad to some people, it's really a love song to her.
That's beautiful. I love that. I mean, what can we expect in terms of just the rest of the record again coming out May 19th?
You're going to realize that on my sleeve, I have this gigantic heart. And I want people to know that at 80, you can still rock and you can still love. And that's why the opening line is, I used to think that I would never love again. Because at 80, coming to the end of my life, I mean, I hope to be here for another 20. I'd love to be 100 years old, So I'm very positive about my life, and I hope that people realize that even when you're 80 years old, you can still do it.
I love that.
Because every single voice on the record is mine.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
There's nobody else, just me.
And were you playing instruments as well on this?
Yeah, I played acoustic guitar on this and electric guitar on a couple of tracks. It was done remotely, strangely enough.
Really?
Oh.
There's a song on there called Buddy's Back. And I wrote that for Alan Clark. Alan Clark and I started the Hollies in December of 1962. So he had lost his voice and he left the Hollies. 20 years later, he calls me and he said, I found my voice again. I'm making a solo record. I'm going to send you a couple of songs. And if you want to put your voice on there, I'd really love it. So he sent me 2 songs. I really liked them. I put my voice on them at Todd Caldwell's studio here in Brooklyn. Sent him back the 2 songs with my voice on it. What does he do? He sends me 2 more. And then he sends me 2 more, and now I'm on 10 tracks of Alan's solo record. And one of them, Buddy's Back, I wrote for his solo record, even though I have it on now, right now. And it was just the Hollies' love for Buddy Holly. I mean, we were the Hollies, for God's sake.
Yeah.
Of course we loved Buddy.
Of course.
Wow.
That's incredible.
Creativity seems to be in your DNA. You know, you're a musician, a writer, photographer. You've done so much in your career. When you're not creating, I'm curious, what are you doing? Because it seems like it's such a big part of your life. So when you're not making something new, what are you doing?
I'm thinking about what to do next. I have probably at least 50 pieces of music in my mind that I've written. And I probably have 50 set of lyrics that I've written. Once I start to write and I say, wait a second, those words and the rhythm of those words that I just wrote, they match this piece of music that I've had in my mind for a while. And so they meet and a brand new song comes out of it.
That's incredible. And so you kind of let it happen. It's kind of milling around up there.
Yeah, you have to just let it happen, but you have to work at it. It's difficult to write songs because the words are so important and they certainly affect people in a certain way. And I've always wanted to remain positive, and I've always wanted to remain not dwelling on the past, because actually there's nothing you can do about the past, but I want to make sure that everybody understands that even at 80 years old, you can still rock.
Totally. Do you feel like you make the music, or do you feel like the music comes to you?
Both. if I, sometimes a song will come, like just a song before I go, as a challenge from a guy who, I was visiting in Hawaii once and had a couple of hours to kill before I had to catch a plane back to the studio with David and Stephen. And he said, "Hey, I bet you can't write a song just before you go." I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah, I'll bet you $500 you can't write a song just before you go." He had no idea that he had given me the title of the song in the question. So he bet me $500, right? And I wrote the song, and then we put it out, and it actually became the biggest single hit that Crosby, Stills, and Nash ever had. About a year ago, at the end of one of my tours, I was leaving the hall, and a lady gave me an envelope. 4x5, just a small envelope. And I put it in my back pocket and I forgot about it, frankly. And then I'm getting dressed the next day and I realize I've got an envelope in my pocket. I open it up and what's inside? A check for $500 from the family of the kid that made me write the song in the first place.
No way.
Isn't that wild?
No way.
That's amazing.
What is your life?
Right.
That's incredible.
That's incredible.
When it comes to collaborating now, do you feel like you took the way you collaborated in Crosby, Stills, and Nash, and do you still collaborate like that, or does it kind of change now that you're kind of in charge and
solo?
It's solo, yeah.
Yeah, I'm in charge of my own music, and I don't have to compromise, and I don't have to listen to anybody else about anything.
Yeah.
I'm really fortunate this way. I'm a musician. I write songs. I have two people that I play with constantly on tour. One of them is Shane Fontaine, who lives in Los Angeles, in Studio City there. He's an incredible guitar player. And Todd Caldwell, who lives in Brooklyn here, on piano. And that's who will be on tour with me this year.
Oh,
That's great. I mean, speaking of touring, you're about to go on, I believe it's a 40-plus date tour. How is tour?
All sold out.
Also, that's
sold out,
incredible.
of course.
Congratulations.
You're welcome.
When you're going on tour as a solo artist, how does touring as a solo artist differ than touring with a band?
We've got it down. The only problem with touring is driving.
Yeah.
Between shows, sometimes, you have an 8-hour drive and sometimes you have a 2-hour drive, but it's the driving, and the hotels that are the worst part of touring.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
The music is the best part, of course.
Yeah, of course. Do you go and look around cities, or are you pretty much jumping into the show and jumping back on the bus?
I used to go around making sure. I have this company called Nash Editions, which was the first company in late 80s to print portfolios for photographers. So I go around galleries and I try and look in the corner with. I carry a small loupe with me and I can look in the corner and see if every pixel is in the right place. And I know that Nash Editions is making great prints and continues to this day. Yeah, so I used to go around. But then when COVID happened and the pandemic happened, you have to really be careful. I mean, I've had COVID twice.
Oh my gosh.
Fortunately, it didn't affect me too badly.
Yeah.
But we, it does confine you to staying in your hotel room, and that's a drag, but I can turn that into a positive by by writing in my room.
Have there been any cities that have stuck out to you when you've been on tours, or anywhere that you really enjoy going back to?
Sure. 3 places: Royal Albert Hall in London,
Mm-hmm.
Carnegie Hall here in New York, and Red Rocks in Colorado.
Red Rocks.
It's have you ever been to Red Rocks?
I saw Jimmy Buffett at Red Rocks like September 2021.
Then you know what I'm talking about.
Best
it's
energy.
An incredible place to play.
It's just magical. I can't imagine standing on that stage and looking out. I mean, it just feels like the whole audience is honored to be there. Not only for the musician, but for the space itself. There's such an
and
energy.
They're so close too.
Yeah.
I mean, it goes straight up.
Yeah.
And then you're surrounded by these 2 gigantic, 200-foot high red rock cliffs. It's incredible to see that from the stage.
Speaking of just touring in general and live shows, I read this and I wanted to ask you about it. Is it true that CSNY's second show was Woodstock?
That was the second show we ever played in front of people. The first was in a theater in Chicago, and then we moved to Woodstock, and it was the second time we'd ever played in front of people.
That's amazing. Did you know at the time that Woodstock was going to be as influential as it was?
In a way, I mean, at first there were 20,000 people going, and then there were 50,000 people, and then 100,000 people, and then 200, and all of a sudden you realize that this was going to be an incredible show. It has glorified, in the local past. I mean, people are fascinated with what happened at Woodstock, and they should be. But to us, it was just another show,
Right.
and I'd obviously, I wasn't nervous at Woodstock at all. I mean, it was Stephen that said we were scared shitless, but I wasn't scared at all because I'd already been through that kind of stuff with the Hollies, for 7 years. And so even when David and I played Guinevere, one acoustic guitar and two voices, we still tried to reach the last row to make sure that people could really hear us. And, the playback system left a lot to be desired. It wasn't great, but I haven't seen Woodstock, the entire movie. I did see our part of Woodstock, and I saw John Sebastian, I saw Richie Havens, I think, but we did pretty well considering that we couldn't hear ourselves too well.
Speaking of, I mean, just, when you come back from a tour, being, just in a go mindset for so long, does it take you time to kind of come down from that high once you get back, once you stop?
No, whatever's next is next.
So you're just very focused on just like, what can I do to keep things moving forward?
Exactly. What can I do to keep moving forward in a positive way? When we ever have a problem, I want to find a solution where everybody wins. I've been that person all my life.
Hey everybody, if you enjoy License to Chill, then you might want to pop on over to SiriusXM and check out Patrick and I on Friday nights for Friday Nights with Patrick and Ryan.
We are hosts on SiriusXM Channel 24, Radio Margaritaville. We host from 7 to midnight, Key West time, we like to say.
Fins up!
And we get your weekend started off right. But if you're not listening to us, listen to the large array of incredible hosts on Radio Margaritaville. We make sure to get you in that island spirit any moment of the day, including the Buffett Buffet, where we play nothing but Jimmy Buffett for a whole hour at 11 a.m., 3 p.m., and 7 p.m.
Check out SiriusXM on your dial, in your car, or download the SXM app wherever you get your apps. We'll see you there.
Back to the show, guys.
Well, so this is the Margaritaville podcast. Of course, we want to talk about relaxation and escapism and a little bit of vacationing as well. I'm curious, being involved in one of the one of the largest groups of all time, a lot of different personalities, of course. Was it difficult for you to take time off, maybe when the other members of the band didn't want to, or was that ever an issue?
No, it's never been an issue.
Never been an
I
issue.
just write for me. I don't write for CSN.
Yeah.
I don't write for the Hollies. I write for me. That's all I can do. And then if David and Stephen and I had this kind of, not a rule, but we had this thing that we would do where we wouldn't record a song that all three of us, we would only record when all three of us liked the song that we were doing. If I played Stephen a song and he didn't like it, you never heard it again. But if we all loved a particular song, that's when we would make a record of it.
In terms of just taking breaks in general, did you and the members of the band ever take vacations together, go on trips together?
Yeah, I remember going to Hawaii with David once.
Okay.
And I saw him do something incredible. And that was this. We had our tour manager, Mac Holbert, with us. And we were walking on this particular rough path in Hawaii. And Mac fell and broke his knee. And I saw Crosby carrying him for a mile.
Wow.
And that's a small thing, but it's gigantic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's so amazing. That's so kind. That's so brave. That's so strong.
Yeah, that was part of, that side of Crosby I love dearly.
Yeah.
He was very funny. His music was unbelievably different. His guitar tunings were different. He brought this jazz influence with his music. I'm going to miss David for the rest of my life. His passing was very sad to me. I've said this before, but it was like an earthquake when the initial shock happens and you have to deal with that. But then these aftershocks keep coming. Every time I go on Instagram, for instance, I see his face. People are talking about him, and I have to realize that he really is gone. He's really gone. But we were getting together towards the end of his life. We were emailing each other, and we set up a time for a FaceTime so that we could see each other. He left me a voicemail where he said he wanted to apologize for shooting off his mouth, and I set up a FaceTime. As I said, it was going to be 2:00 my time in New York, 11:00 his time in Los Angeles. And I waited and I waited and I waited, but he never called. And 2 days later, he was dead.
Oh my gosh.
You talk a little bit about the aftershocks. I've lost people in my life as well. And something that always strikes me is the memories that come out of nowhere, where you're like, I didn't, why am I thinking of that? Or why is that coming back? Are there any memories with David Crosby that have come up recently where you're like, wow, why did that kind of come to the top of my brain?
Yeah, there is. And I've been concentrating only on the good things. I only want to remember, I don't want to remember the bad side of David. And he had a bad side. He was unbelievably bright, and as I said, he was very funny. But when he was serious and he didn't like something, he was very cruel sometimes. So I'd rather not remember any of that. Yeah. What I do remember is seeing, for instance, I think it was the Old Grey Whistle Test in London in 1971, where David and I had just scored some weed. Right. Normally it was hash with tobacco, and I can't stand tobacco, but one day we got some weed and we were incredibly high, but we were incredibly good too. Check it out. It's on the BBC from 1971, and it is amazing.
I have to watch that.
We're gonna check it out.
I have to watch that. That is so cool. That's amazing. That's a good memory for sure.
Yeah, I only want to remember the good times I had with David. We made some great music together, and there's no doubt about it that we had a certain blend. We certainly weren't the Everly Brothers because we were not connected with our DNA as they were. They came from the same womb. They had a connection together that me and David didn't have because we were just two individual friends. They were DNA. That's their blend, and it was brilliant and beautiful. But David and I had a certain vocal blend that we loved also, and I made some good music with David, and that's what I'll always try and remember first.
That's beautiful.
I love that.
Well, we're coming to the end of our time with you. We have something we like to do because this is a Margaretville podcast. Love talking about vacation, travel, escapism. So we like to ask you a couple kind of rapid fire questions at the end. Where basically we want to know, when you travel, when you want to get away, what's your dream location? What's your dream space to get to? If you had a month to get away, a week to get away, a day to get away, an hour to get away.
I would go to Florence for all of those days.
Florence. What about Florence?
Florence is my favorite city in the world.
Why is that?
Have you ever walked through the house that Michelangelo lived in?
I can't say I have.
And saw where he slept and saw where he worked.
Wow.
There is some incredible art in Florence. Unbelievable art, and you're completely surrounded by art. And I love that. I don't know whether you've ever been to Florence, but it is an incredible city. And there's a church there, the San Clemente, that where the tombs of Leonardo, of Marconi, of Florence Nightingale, of Michelangelo, all their tombs are there in this one church.
Wow.
And when you walk around that church and you realize just who is lying there, it is an unbelievable feeling.
Well, Graham, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it. The new album Now is out May 19th. We are so excited for you, for the tour. Library of Congress, again, congratulations. Such an achievement. We're big fans, and again, really appreciate your time today.
Thank you very much to both of you.
Thank you so much, Graham. Thanks.
Take it easy, eh?
Thanks.
Take
you
care.
Too.
Patrick, Graham Nash, how about that?
That was, I can't even describe it. What a thrill to speak to him, and for him to be so candid and open with us, tell so many cool stories. Yeah, I'm going to be thinking about that interview for the rest of my life.
Me too. Yeah, it was incredible. Just hearing all of his stories about, like the creation of Our House and how simple of a moment that was, and it turned into one of, my favorite songs of all time.
Yeah, complete chills. I feel like that was like a little masterclass in just taking what's there. I also loved that every answer for him was both.
Yes.
Every answer was, it wasn't as artistic and crazy as we thought it was. He just did things, and he did what he wanted, and he followed the path, and I thought it was just such an honor to speak to him. So.
Absolutely. So, Patrick, each week on this show, we want to end things off by talking about what we did this week that was quote-unquote Margaritaville, what we did for ourselves to kind of escape a little bit.
That's right.
So,
because you don't have to go on a trip to be Margaritaville. Okay, to live the Margaritaville lifestyle. You can do little daily practices in Margaritavillism.
Yes, absolutely. So I'll kind of kick things off. This week, I got one of those meal kit delivery things.
Oh, yeah.
I always have such a hard time finding out what to cook for myself, and this made it super easy. It was super fun. I really love doing it. Everything comes like pre-portioned and everything, and I got to do it with my fiance, and that was a lot of fun.
Oh, so you cook something a little new for yourself.
I cook something a little new. I get into like these ruts. It's either pasta or it's chicken, and that's about it.
Not anymore.
Fish tacos, good to go.
Great. Wow, that's pretty Margaritaville. You made
Pretty
some fish
Margaritaville.
tacos?
Yeah.
There you
I had
go.
to do work, which isn't exactly Margaritaville,
Yeah, that's
but
true.
we got there. What about you?
I'm going to say this is Margaritaville. I drove on empty for way too long. I think this would be maybe a little late 70s, early 80s era Jimmy Buffett.
Sure, a little rowdy,
Little cowboy
rascally.
in the jungle, little last line, little pushing the fool button.
Yeah.
But I pushed it a little bit, a little rascally, a little like, we'll see what happens.
How low did you get?
I went way low.
Okay, like 3 miles left?
Like, I would say that the meter, it was pointing straight down.
Okay. It just flashed. What are you doing?
It was 0 for a while.
Zero for a while.
Yeah. It was, you're seeing the bottom end of that empty the gas line. The 2 lines. I saw the second line.
You saw the second line.
I saw the second line.
Oh, that's huge. That's
I
a
know.
big deal.
So it's pretty Margaritaville to me. I don't recommend it. Okay?
Rock and roll, baby.
Rock and roll. And I'm okay. I
You're
filled
good.
it back up. And
Okay.
I filled it completely up. I know
So you-
exactly how much gas can fit in that tank.
They
now.
say don't top it off, but you topped it off.
I think I did. So
Okay.
And that's Margaritaville, baby.
That's a good look into our personalities. I got a meal kit delivery, and you coasted to the gas station.
Yeah, that isn't us in a nutshell. I don't know what it is. If you want to tell us how you live your Margaritaville lifestyle, what did you do that was so Margaritaville this week? You can find us at the email address in the description of this episode. And let us know. We want to hear from you, and we'll read your stories on air.
Absolutely. And Patrick, wouldn't you know it? It is checkout time.
Already?
Already. I am Ryan Middledorf.
I'm Patrick McDonald, and we will see you next week.
License to Chill is the official Margaritaville podcast. Produced by Tamara Baldanza-Decker, Courtney Watkins, and Kirsten Winquest. Art by Tom Boyd. Music by Aaron McAnally and Mick Utley. Additional resources provided by Coleman Sisson. New episodes are released every Monday. Subscribe now wherever you get your podcasts.